two, one, two, three.
Hello and welcome to Ithaca DSA Presents. I'm Theresa Alt. I'm here today with Veronica Pillar. She's a fellow DSA member and also a Tompkins County legislator. We're going to be talking about the latest campaign to tax the rich, hoping for such legislation in the coming year. Veronica Pillar, why tax the rich?
That is a great question. The shortest answer is to get closer to the ultra wealthy paying their fair share into the government so that the government can properly fund services that everyday people need throughout, in this case, these are state bills, so throughout New York State. Um, the status quo as it is that wealth inequality and income inequality, so the difference between the people who have and make the very most money and the middle class down to the very poor, that inequality has been just increasing steadily since around 1980. And what we have now is that collectively, our society has all of the financial resources it needs to do things like provide everybody health care, provide everybody childcare, provide everybody housing and food, and have everyone doing the labor to provide those things get paid a living wage. But those resources are not going toward that. Those resources, as you can see, are largely not going in that direction because we've got plenty of people who are hungry, unhoused, extremely rent burdened, going without health care for inability to pay all sorts of things. And a large driver is that lots of this money is sitting in the complex bank accounts of billionaires and who are very good at limiting how much tax they pay to the government. And their tax structures have been set up by decision makers who are influenced by the ultra wealthy, if not many of them being the ultra wealthy themselves. And this has just created a system, this has reinforced a system that for decades has the ultra wealthy paying disproportionately little compared to the actual amount of money they have into taxes for our government, and our social support systems are struggling. So taxing the rich more than we do would come closer to having them pay their fair share, and we could fund so much basic support that New Yorkers need.
Okay, and a number of times you said we and didn't really
Mm-hmm.
specify who you meant by we. So I'll just sort of look into that. Our national government at the moment is completely in the hands of the billionaires. They are getting more and more benefits, and everybody else is being thoroughly messed over. New York State could do things differently. The state has the power to set its own taxes, what kind of taxes it will charge, and what the rates will be. At this point, I think my statistics are only a few years old here. New York State was like the most unequal state in the country.
I think that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think,
by some metric. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think that has changed. It
Stats
is
I have here that in New York State, the top 1% wealthiest people in New York take home 31% of all income. Whereas if you look nationwide, the top 1% wealthiest people in the whole US take home 21% of all the income. Both are terrible, but New York is worse than that.
significantly worse. However, New York has the power to make changes, and it has to be at the state level. And this is very different from the situation in local government, where there's both when it comes to counties and when it comes to cities and towns, very little power to change the kinds of taxes that can be used. And I've seen people get very confused about which kinds of taxes are being are under consideration, which leads to some bad decisions.
Yeah, that's totally right. If I can comment a little from because I sit on our Tompkins County legislature, which is one such local government, and we have lots of revenue streams, but the primary ones that we can control and the tax streams that generate non-trivial amounts of revenue are property tax, which is just people owning real estate, houses, land, buildings, paying some percentage of their assessed value, and sales tax, which everyone is familiar with. And neither of those tax systems scale with people's wealth. Like generally, the more wealth you have, the less you are paying proportionately in property tax and sales tax. They're regressive. The progressive income tax or progressive taxes like income tax, which of course we all do pay to the federal government and state government, and various other things like also taxes on corporations and anything having to do with like capital gains, those all are or could be progressive, which is what we want, but New York State does not allow its localities, counties, cities, towns to levy those taxes. New York State does often require its counties, cities, towns to pay for this and that service, that the state will say, hey, you have to provide this service, but we are not going to provide you the money to do it. And then the local government has to balance good service provision with drawing revenue in a regressive way. But for this, the state can enact progressive taxes, can tax the rich. And a lot of the services that localities and or the state fund, I think it's pretty like, it's very easy for the state to just give money to its local governments. So the revenue to provide a service could come from the state or could come from the localities. It kind of doesn't matter. So we both and many would like it to come more from the state because the state can tax the rich. It has that power.
Yes, and in the distant past, and by that I mean like the 1980s, before 1991, I think, there was a lot more money coming from proportionately coming from the state to say the cities and other local governments. Anyway, there is a campaign on now to make state taxes more fair. So, can you tell us what bills are on the table in the coming year?
Yes. So there's a whole set of bills, both for the revenue and spending ideas, including one for universal childcare that I'll set aside for now. But the revenue bills for the actual taxing of the actual rich, there are five of them. They are all currently like introduced on the table somewhere in this legislative session. And the five bills do different things. I think the two primary ones that are being touted and would get a lot of revenue are a corporate tax increase, which would simply increase the rates of taxes that large corporations pay. And this applies to big corporations only. It applies to C corps only. our assembly member, Anna Kellis, actually, who sponsors the bill, has specified. So I'm not an expert in corporate structures, but all of your small LLCs and doing business as and S corps, they don't pay corporate tax anyway. It's only a thing for C corps, which is not a phrase you normally hear, or at least me, because my friends are not making C corps. Some of them are starting LLCs and stuff, but these are like the big guys. This one bill would raise the tax rate on corporate income. In particular, it's Senate Bill S953, Assembly Bill A1971, for anyone who wants to follow that. I guess I don't have the sponsors so easy. I have the Senate sponsors easily. This one, the corporate tax bill, is introduced by Brad Hoylman Siegel in the Senate and Anna Kellis in the Assembly. Anna Kellis being here in Ithaca, our legislative representative. So we are lucky that she's an advocate she is a sponsor or co-sponsor on all 5 of the revenue bills, which is fantastic. And she's the lead sponsor on this one. The other major one of the 5 changes the income tax code to increase the tax rates on high amounts of income. What it would do is, for a yearly income after deductions and everything, up through $450,000, it does not change anything. At the $450,000 mark, people's income would start to be taxed a little more. And at the $1 million mark, it would start to be taxed even more, with a rate that is progressive and keeps increasing, as in the percentage of the income that you're paying keeps increasing all the way up to an income of $20 million. Remember, that's in 1 year. So we are talking ultra wealthy. If you'll indulge me in one thing, I think that something that I know I struggle with, and a lot I think of others do, is thinking about tax the rich and trying to comprehend what is rich. Like, what is this ultra wealthy? Because, you can talk about millionaires and billionaires, and a million and a billion sound very similar, but they're very different amounts of money. In Ithaca, the median household income is around $50,000. So, and that's just like everyday household, whatever, struggling, getting by. If you imagine, I like to imagine a street block, say 6 or 7 houses on each side. Mostly the houses are single family homes. Maybe a few of them are like 3 or 4 unit, like a duplex or a small apartment building. And imagine every household is making the median income. And think about all the money flowing into that entire block of like 16 to 20 households. Now imagine that same amount of money coming in the year, but it is all going to one person in one house. That person would still probably not be affected by this progressive income tax bill because they are still not making enough money. It is the person who owns the entire street or whatever who is going to be taxed more. Like, we are talking redonkulous amounts of money. And when you put it that way, I think it's sort of it should be obvious, like, oh yes, of course we should collect a greater percentage of that in taxes to fund people's basic needs. It is not going to hurt the people making that much money, but it can be hard to envision when it's sort of obscured behind numbers that are hard to fathom and a bunch of legalese and, frankly, lawyers and advocates for the ultra wealthy doing their best to convince you that for some reason it's a bad idea.
Okay, well, you have actually answered a number of the questions that I was going to ask already. What bills are on the table? Although I think there are a few that you didn't name.
Right. And I can name the other 3 if.
Yeah, why don't you?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, I guess I didn't. Where am I? The progressive income tax bill. It's sponsored by Robert Jackson in the Senate and Desmond Meeks in the Assembly. The other 3 bills are, one adds an additional tax on capital gains income, essentially. The Senate Bill S1439, Assembly Bill A676. There is one that referred to as the heirs tax, as in like inheritance heirs, which adds a tax to inheritance income. Inheritance income over, I believe, $250,000 is where it kicks in. So again, we're talking large. and on gift income. Currently, those are, you can inherit money without paying taxes on it. One of the few ways you can transfer real money from one person to another without getting taxed. And then finally, there's oh yeah, that bill, the heirs tax, is Senate Bill S914 and Assembly A2049. And finally, there's a billionaire mark-to-market tax, which is a phrase at least I didn't know. Mark-to-market is an accounting thing where if you've got some asset like a bunch of stocks or something like some financial instrument that's intangible, and you could assess its value as, okay, well, I paid $1 million to get this thing. Therefore, it's worth $1 million until maybe sometime in the future, if I sell it and now its value has grown, then at that point I would say, oh, well, now I guess it's worth $2 million. That would be like a traditional way of accounting. Mark to market means that you mark its value at what it would get on the market if you sold it. So maybe
year by year.
Year by year. So maybe I don't have $1 million, but say I do, and I buy an investment somewhere and it's worth $1 million. Then a few years down the line, it's worth $2 million. However, if I don't sell it, I don't have to pay any tax on that added $1 million. I have essentially, my net worth has increased by $1 million because the value of this investment went up, but I haven't had to pay any taxes on it. This mark-to-market tax would require that I do pay tax on that increase in value, just the increase, as if it were regular income. And this is valuable because lots of the ultra wealthy, again, will use things like this, get a financial, like make an investment so they have some kind of asset and its value grows and grows, and they don't sell it, but instead they use it as
collateral, huh?
Yeah, they use it as collateral to like get other loans and other things. So it is the increased value. It is real value for them, and they are using it to make more money or make more investments, but they haven't paid taxes on the increased value, and they won't until they sell it, which again, they don't have to sell it in order to use it. So this bill, Senate Bill S165, sponsored by Jessica Ramos, and Assembly A3632, and A3632 is the other one that is lead sponsored by Anna Kellis. That would require billionaires, actually. I said I was giving a hypothetical of what if I had $1 million, but it wouldn't even affect me then. This is only people whose wealth is at least $1 billion would start having to pay income tax on increased value of their assets, even when you don't sell them.
Okay. You've just answered the question that was on my mind, which is, well, what if I invested $1,000 and you're saying, forget about it.
If your net worth is under $1 billion, this will not affect you at all. This taxing bill will not affect you at all. It will probably have the secondhand effect of being able to fund some programs that will help you, but it won't cost you anything.
Okay, so I think we can move on to a couple of the other key questions. Who are supporting these bills?
Great question. A lot of people. So taxing the rich in general has wide popular support. Somewhere between like 75 and 85% of New York voters support taxing billionaires to fund public services. And in particular, the support taxing billionaires so that they are paying their fair share, kind of like the rest of us. As for the specific bills, Theresa, you might know better than I do, but there is an organized campaign going, I think certainly among DSA chapters across the state, to try to get this package of bills passed.
But I'm sure DSA isn't the only group. But I haven't been involved enough to know who else might be involved.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know I don't know by name. I know there's like a coalition that is its own campaign, um
Hmm.
but I don't know exactly other than it is popular. The Tax the Rich campaign, which by the way, you can find much of this information summarized at taxtherichny.com. It is moving and it's growing, and the hope is to grow a very large and broad statewide coalition to push for these bills to be passed. Because again, with the average person, they are overwhelmingly more popular than not.
So the campaign is working right now to grow the coalition.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good. And that has almost answered the next question, which was going to be, what can people do to further this campaign, to move these bills forward? And I think I am guessing that the website that you just mentioned would be key to that.
Yes. So visit the website. You can sign up for updates. There's the goal of the campaign
Well,
is,
name it again,
oh yes,
please.
taxtherichny.com.
And
Just
are there any spaces or anything?
no spaces or
No.
anything. Just
Okay.
taxtherichny.com. I think also if you just Google Tax the Rich NY for New York,
Yeah.
you'll find this. Um, if you leave off the New York, you'll find all sorts of other things, which I'm sure are great, but not this particular campaign. And so you can sign up there to get on an email list to get updates. And from there, you could help with just various other aspects of a campaign. Could be door knocking, could be letter writing, could be trying to communicate with other organizations, could be helping to put together educational information like you will see on that website. So even if you don't know, have an idea of like, oh, I want to do X to help, staying in the loop can be really helpful because it allows you to join part of a broad base of support that can potentially all be mobilized at once, can communicate in a synchronized way, which can be very powerful in pressuring the state government leaders in Albany. The other, and at any time, also just contacting your state legislative representative or contacting the governor and saying like, hey, we want these bills to pass, or contacting House and Senate leadership. That's always helpful. I mentioned that in Ithaca, our assembly rep, Anna Kellis, is a sponsor or co-sponsor on all 5 of the revenue bills, but it's still helpful to contact her, not to persuade her to support them because she does, but essentially to give her ammunition that she can turn around to the assembly leader and committee chairs and things and say, hey, look at how strongly my constituents want these bills passed. And that's valuable for her to fight for them. If you have an assembly rep who's not on board with it, you could try to convince them to be on board. Anything.
Yes, and I can say that the radio version of this show goes well beyond Tompkins County.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So
And,
people
and
listening could have a wide variety of
right.
representatives.
And the video version, while it won't go to many people on cable, will be on YouTube and be available to the whole world
Yes.
or most of the world.
Yeah. And so if you're not in New York State, if you've got a friend in New York State, tell them to contact their representatives. And you can always sign up for the campaign.
Yes, I was much more familiar with a very similar campaign 5 years ago. At that time, there were 6 bills. Let's see, what were they? Progressive income tax system, taxing investment income the same as wages, rather than letting investment income escape with lower taxes, and taxing work, which is completely backwards as far as I'm concerned. Taxing inheritances, amending the state constitution to allow a wealth tax. That seems to have gone by the wayside.
Yeah, I don't think that's in this
Yeah.
set. Those previous two are,
Yeah. This
I don't know if
is
the verbiage has
5 years
changed, but
ago.
the core idea is in this package as
Yeah.
well.
A small tax on Wall Street financial transactions, which actually, I believe, exists already, except that it keeps getting rebated.
Mm.
So that was just, well, do it. Um, and even then that was also under Trump, offset Trump's corporate tax cuts. And I think we're there. Thank you, Veronica Pillar, for telling us about the current campaign to tax the rich. This has been Ithaca DSA Presents. I'm Theresa Alt. Thanks for watching.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.